Welcome to On the Goal Line today, and I'll be interviewing Chris Fallica off ESPN's College Game Day. We'll start with something to do with game day. The first question is, what College Game Day site this year has been the most electric?
This year, I think anytime we get to a place for the first time, it's pretty electric. And I think the atmosphere that we had in Ames back for Iowa State was pretty darn good. I mean, it was like the scene from Field of Dreams with the car lights lining the road early in the darkness before the sun was coming up to get to site and be there for the show and to get the tailgate spot, and then that was a pretty electric show. So I think the Ames show is probably up there, and the South Dakota State show was pretty good too. Another first timer.
Okay, so the second question is, do you like the 14 playoff, or would you like to see an expansion?
I'm a fan of the 14 playoff. I think it should be difficult to get into the playoff, and everyone went into this playoff conversation with their eyes wide open. You knew there were 5 Power 5 conferences. You knew there was Notre Dame, and you knew there were only 4 spots available for the playoffs. So I think it should be hard to get in. I'm not a fan of, you win your conference, you're automatically in, and then we need to put a group of 5 team in there automatically as well. And I'm a fan of putting the 4 best in, and I like it at 4.
I agree with you. I feel like once it gets to 8, then people start calling for 16, and I think it just go from there.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Well, if it goes to 4, if it goes to 6 or 8, then it just goes on and on, and it doesn't stop.
Yeah. So the third question is, this season, what do you think's been the biggest upset in your opinion?
I mean, there's been a couple. Obviously, South Carolina was somehow winning a game in Athens that they had absolutely no business winning. Was a pretty good big upset. UNLV going to Vandy and winning as a huge underdog was a pretty stunning result. Those were both games that I don't think anybody really saw coming out. I'm sure I'm missing a couple right now. I mean, Kansas State, they were a big number point spread wise, but it's not like they were completely outclassed. I guess if I had to pick one, now that I'm sitting here thinking about it, Bowling Green beating Toledo earlier in the year. They were about a 30-point underdog or so, and Bowling Green is one of the worst teams in the country. And this was really before Toledo really kind of showed. I guess they're a little bit down this year. They had some quarterback injuries. We really didn't know how bad Toledo was at the time. But Toledo losing to Bowling Green was one of those results. You're like, how the heck did that happen?
Okay, so now Utah is a one-loss team, and they'll most likely face Oregon in the Pac-12 championship. So do you think there's still a shot for Utah to get in the playoffs?
They do, and I think they're a little bit of a forgotten team. I think people nationally just might assume that Oregon is better than Utah, mainly because they probably saw the Ducks play Auburn in that first game down in Dallas to start the year. But since they lost, Utah has ripped off 5 straight wins by an average of about 26 points a game. Zach Moss is healthy now. Their running back, Tyler Huntley, is now healthy. In quarterback, they've got a really deep defensive line that I think can give Oregon problems. I wouldn't be surprised if Utah was a small favorite in the Pac-12 championship game, and that might be a situation where if they win, the committee might deem them as one of the 4 most deserving teams. I don't think anybody would say that they're better than Alabama, but the committee might just say, hey, they won their conference. They might be more deserving. But I do think the Utes still have a chance of making the playoffs.
Okay, I agree with you on that. I still think they have a shot. I think it's a long shot for them too, but I think they still have somewhat of a path, but it'd be real difficult for them. And then,
they do. I mean, they're a big favorite. They're a big favorite this week. They're going to be a big favorite next week. They're going to be a big favorite in all 3 of their games prior to the Pac-12 title game. So I do think we're going to wind up with 11-1 Oregon versus 11-1 Utah in the Pac-12 championship game, and then we'll have a conversation on Selection Day.
Okay, so do you think Urban Meyer will come out of retirement, coach again, or no?
It sure seems like it. I mean, last year, I guess being caught up in all the swirling of his health issues and stuff, I kind of was in the minority thinking that he was probably done, and maybe I thought he would hang it up, and the health concerns would finally cause him to just sit back and and relax and get out of coaching. But it sure does look like, from what you read and hear, that he certainly is looking to get back in, and whether he winds up at USC or not, I do get the sense that he is looking to coach again. But I don't think it'll be at Florida State. I don't think it'll be at USC either. I mean, I think maybe we have one more year off for Auburn before he gets back in.
See, I'm really confused where he's coming from because he quit. I feel like he didn't quit on Ohio State. He left Ohio State. He said he retired, and now he wants to come back. I don't see it happen, in my opinion.
You know, I want him to do whatever is best for him and his family. I almost hope he doesn't come back because, I mean, there isn't going to be anything that he's able to solve with his health issues, at least what we found out last year. Like the stress and the anxiety of coaching and the pressure of being involved in those games are going to cause the headaches and that cyst that he has in his head to get worse. So I would almost hope in someone who wants something, who wants what's best for him, for his health, to not coach. So we'll see what happens.
Okay, so what is the biggest rivalry game based on pure hate?
Yeah, I think Alabama-Auburn's probably up there. I think in terms of pure hate, that is a really good one that I've seen. Like Army-Navy, Ohio State. Army-Navy's more respectful, I think. Obviously, they don't fight, they don't love each other, but there's a lot of respect there. Even Ohio State and Michigan, I think going back, there's been a lot more, at least historically in the rivalry, there's been a lot more respect between the two. But Alabama-Auburn, it's obvious there's no love lost between either of those schools. And another sneaky one that people don't, I think, nationally realize, if you're in the Pac-12 or the Pacific Northwest, but Oregon-Washington is a nasty rivalry. Those two schools do not like each other, and while it's not to the level of Alabama-Auburn, Oregon-Washington is certainly a rivalry game that I think people throughout the country will be surprised at the bitterness there.
Okay, so we talked about the upsets earlier, so there's been 3 top 6 teams going down this year. Do you think any teams this weekend should be on the lookout?
Yeah, I think you have Minnesota. Minnesota and Baylor are both underdogs, undefeated, and they're both underdogs against the teams that have a loss. I mean, Iowa's got 3 losses, and the Gophers are a field goal underdog in Iowa City, where they haven't won in somewhat 20 years. So I think after last week's big win over Penn State, they certainly could be on a chance to lose. As is Baylor. Baylor's a double-digit underdog, and they do have a win over Kansas State, whereas Oklahoma was beaten by Kansas State. But I just wonder if the Baylor offense is capable of keeping up and scoring possession for possession with Oklahoma. Because while I do like Baylor's defense, I don't think they're going to keep OU out of the end zone. So I think both of those undefeated tomorrow, Iowa, Minnesota and Baylor, both very easily could wind up on the short end of the stick.
Okay, going back to the playoffs, who would get in the playoff in this scenario? 1-loss Alabama, 1-loss Big 12 champion Oklahoma, or a 1-loss Pac-12 champion in Oregon?
Well, I think it comes down to your definition of best. I think if you ask anybody with a neutral opinion or someone with a statistical background, a power rating background, I don't think anybody would disagree that Alabama is the best of those 3 teams. However, in that scenario, you would have 2 conference champions, and I think the committee has always harped on these non-conference games and the fact that Oregon had that non-conference game with Auburn, and even though they lost it, they played it. I think that would be a little bit of a good check a box in the eyes of the committee. So I would put Alabama in because I would have a hard time thinking Alabama isn't better than Oregon, especially if they were to go to Jordan Hare in a couple of weeks and win. But it would not surprise me in that situation if the committee used a conference championship type tiebreaker, for the lack of a better word, and wind up siding with the Pac-12 champs.
I agree, but I just feel like it'd be hard for you. Basically, look at it. Every team would have 1 loss, but then, like Oregon, they would have a conference championship. I think that'd be hard to kind of look away from. Alabama's lost to LSU. It was kind of a close loss. LSU, the top team in the country, but that I think a conference championship has to go. It has to have some leeway. I think at the end of the day. Yeah,
it does, and I think maybe there might be a little bit of maybe if like Utah were to win the Pac-12, and you could take that Auburn game out there and that Auburn result, that might be one fewer thing the committee would have to be able to measure Alabama and Utah, and that might give the Pac-12 a little bit better of an opportunity as well.
Okay, so the last question is, in the upcoming weeks, which team will have the biggest impact on the college football playoff, you think?
I think it's Auburn. I think Auburn can single-handedly take two teams from the SEC out. They have Georgia this coming weekend, and if they were to beat Georgia at home, that gives a second loss to the Bulldogs and most likely takes them out of playoff consideration. I don't think, as a two-loss SEC champ, Georgia would necessarily be in. I mean, there might be some that disagree with that, so we'll see. And then, obviously, Auburn hosts Alabama in a couple of weeks. And Alabama has to have that win in order to continue holding on to some hope that they could make it as an 11-1 non-SEC champion. So, Auburn, with hosting Georgia and hosting Alabama, is certainly a team that, while I don't think Auburn can make the playoff, they can certainly have a big say into who does.
I 100% agree with you, but it depends on which Auburn shows up in those two games. You could have Bo Nix playing high caliber, or you could have Bo Nix throwing 4 interceptions. I just don't know if Auburn can keep those games close. I hope they do, but it depends on which Auburn shows up, in my opinion.
Well, that's true. I mean, the good thing for Auburn is you're getting Bo Nix at home against some of these teams, as opposed to having to go to Tiger Stadium or go on the road and play Oregon in a neutral site game, or going to the spot and playing Florida. So the good news for Bo Nix and the good news for Auburn is that they do get both those teams at home, where he might be able to have a little bit more of a comfort zone.
Okay, so that's all the questions. So thank you so much. This is Chris Fallica off College Game Day, and wish the best of luck for your future. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me on.